Our aerial journey begins at Rodby Harbour on Lolland Island, before crossing to Falster Island and its beaches and bridges. On the island of Mun, we take a look at the white cliffs and a very rare romantic landscape, before crossing to the main island of Zealand and the city of Roskilde. We then fly east to Copenhagen, the capital city, before going north past royal palaces to the end of our journey at Kronborg Castle, immortalised as Hamlet's castle from Shakespeare's play. In Denmark, ferries are a very familiar sight, as the country consists of over 480 islands, of which 100 are inhabited. At Rodby Harbour, on the island of Lolland, the ferry links Denmark to Germany and mainland Europe. The landscape of Denmark is low-lying, with wide stretches of cornfields and forests, and in this sea of fields are small, neat farms, many going back centuries. And in the villages, centuries-old coloured churches rise above the low-lying houses. And nowhere in Denmark is very far from the sea. This is the country where the Vikings once set out across the oceans to explore and conquer distant lands. And the sea is still a way of life, with harbour towns like Nykøbing on the island of Falster next to Lolland. The love of the sea has given rise to the Danish tradition of summer houses by the beach. At Moreløst on Falster, the beach extends to around 20 kilometres, and like all beaches in the country, is protected from any development. Simple, individual wooden houses are built in the woods and used as holiday and weekend homes. Moreløst began in the late 19th century as a place to recuperate, and the popularity of fresh sea air and simple living caught on. As engineering development progressed, bridges began to replace ferries on major routes. In the 1930s, the Storstrøm Bridge was built. It is just under 2 miles long and carries both road and rail. Before the bridge was commissioned by Danish State Railways, trains would have been loaded onto ferries to cross the water. So the new bridge took hours of a journey to Rodby Harbour for both trains as well as road traffic. For the next 50 years, this was the only road connection between the islands. But by the 1970s, with more vehicles on the road, the bridge was becoming too narrow, and large lorries could barely pass. A new bridge was needed. So in 1985, the Faru Bridge was opened, with 4 lanes for traffic. This suspension bridge is unusual in having only a single cable structure in the centre. There are actually 2 Faru bridges, which meet on a small island in the middle of the strait, and the suspension bridge is high enough to let small ships pass underneath. In 1989, Denmark was the first country in the world to ban straw and stubble burning, though in places like Boø Island it still seems to carry on. The old practice of burning had the advantage of removing weed seeds and creating a natural fertilizer from the ash, which could be ploughed back into the soil. However, it pollutes the atmosphere and releases large amounts of carbon dioxide. It's also potentially dangerous if the fire gets out of control. To the east of Falster is the island of Mun, which pushes out into the Baltic Sea. And on the southeast corner is a lighthouse warning ships of the nearby cliffs, which are one of the highest parts of Denmark and one of the country's most popular destinations for tourists. These are the cliffs of Mun, which stretch for 6 kilometers. At their highest, these chalk cliffs stand at over 120 meters. They are made up of millions of microscopic creatures which lived on the seabed over 70 million years ago. Every so often, large sections break off with erosion from the sea, as a result of water freezing in the cracks during the winter. For a period of time, the spoil creates a new beach and colours the sea a milky blue. And with every fall of chalk from the cliffs, fossils become exposed, and the cliffs become a popular place to collect them. Visitors also come to see Liselund in the woods above the cliffs, which is a rare romantic landscape from the late 18th century. The Calmette family built a small thatched picturesque castle in a neoclassical style. This romantic house was to be a place where the family could be as informal as the period allowed. The idea for Liselund came from the Calmette's trip to Germany and Switzerland, where they were inspired by the landscape and romantic buildings.